just wasn't impressed with it. I don't know.
Hey everyone.
What's up, Bobby?
Not much, man. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, friends and comrades.
Hello.
How are you? We just got out of our work group lead meeting and then hopped over here quickly. But it was great, and just giving some updates on work groups and moving things along. Exciting stuff is happening.
Cool.
So thanks everyone for joining. I think we can just hop right in and get started. Kelly, do you want to introduce our speakers, our guests for the day?
I can introduce Sarah. She is on the board of the Friends of Pima Animal Care Center. They raise a ton of money for Pima Animal Care Center, and they're doing just an incredible job. So she is going to be one of our speakers. And Bobby, do you want to introduce?
Yes, absolutely. So I've invited my good friend Brian from the San Diego Humane Society here to talk a little bit about the work that they do. Our goal today was to try to have a bit of diversity in the fundraising conversation, having Sarah here helping with being friends of a municipal shelter, and Brian coming from the nonprofit scope. So I'm excited to have Brian here. I'm going to give him a moment to introduce himself and tell you a little bit about what they do out in San Diego. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So over to you, Brian.
Over to me. So you want me just to start rolling?
Yes, sir. Quick intro from you, sir.
All right. So I'm Brian Daugherty. I'm the Chief Philanthropy Officer at San Diego Humane Society. At San Diego Humane Society, we are a private shelter with municipal contracts. I don't know how much everybody knows about it, so I'll tell a little bit. We have 5 different campuses at this point. We take in about 40,000 companion animals, and we do wildlife as well. So we do about 12,000 wildlife each year. So it's a reasonably large operation. Our revenue is basically split. 45% of our budget comes in from philanthropy, 45% comes in from municipal contracts, and another 10% comes in from, all the other miscellaneous things like adoption fees and other things that come in for us. I've been doing fundraising for a long time now, and have been doing animal welfare for a long time now too. So about 25 years really in each, and feel very fortunate to be in the position that I'm in at San Diego Humane Society and kind of connecting my professional experience with my personal passion, which is really being there to help animals. And I certainly recognize that now that construct of helping animals is shifting and changing to, hey, you know what? We also help people too. And that's a big part of this equation. And I think it's an exciting opportunity to actually extend our ability to raise more money for what we do. One of the things that maybe some of the folks on this call may not be aware of is essentially, if you look at the philanthropic support that goes throughout this country, animals make up about 1% of what people give away philanthropically every year. And when I think about that, I think, you know what? Animals are solidly worth 2%. And if we could get to 2%, it would literally change everything that we have going on for animals. And for the record, if anybody wants, I'll gladly tell you which buckets I'll pull that percentage point from. They won't miss it. They won't even know it happened. And I have my sort of target set on those groups. And I think that basically what we need to do, and we'll talk more about this as we get through this, is really talk about storytelling and what philanthropy really means for animals and the people who love them and our cause. And I love talking about it. So thanks for giving me an opportunity to come, just share a couple of thoughts with you all and hear your thoughts as well.
No, this is so exciting. Thank you so much, Brian. So I'd love to toss it over to Sarah. Maybe give us a little bit of background about you, the organization that you support, and the gobs of money that you've been helping PAC raise.
Sure, thanks. Hi, everybody. So my name is Sarah, and I work for Friends of Pima Animal Care Center here in Tucson. We are the official nonprofit partner to the shelter. That being said, we are still an independent 501c3. So we are on our own, but we do not have to follow the government red tape or procurement processes, that sort of thing. So we can respond to shelter needs immediately as they arise, which has really given, I think, some incredible flexibility to our
Sarah,
county
I don't
shelter.
think you had a big enough smile on your face when you said that. I'm just saying.
Thanks. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I love my job. I feel like I get to say yes to everything that the shelter needs. You know, like we, you know, oh, we need crates to transport these pets, you know, on Wings of Rescue or whatever, and I say yes, I have ordered them. You know, like it's always like I can always kind of answer the shelter needs. All thanks to our donors, of course. We rely primarily on individual donors. And so that is something I'll be talking about today, is some relationship building.
That is amazing. So Kelly, do you have a place that you want us to start with this conversation, or would you like me to keep going?
I don't, I do have one question, which is there anyone on the call that is unable to fundraise entirely? Good. If so, I have if you are looking to set up a friends group, I have a friend who loves, for some reason, to set up nonprofits. So gotta email me.
So that's a very strange person.
Right? Right? She's wonderful. She loves data. It's great.
Sounds like a good friend to have. Everyone should have a friend that likes that. Everyone should have a friend that has a truck, and friends that like live in Hawaii.
Yeah, and I guess for this conversation, friends that also want to donate money to you, right? That one also helps.
You know, it does.
Brian, I'd love to kind of start at the top of this conversation. You know, maybe there are people that are successfully fundraising, but you know, there are people that are just trying to dip their feet in the water. What can you kind of talk to me about the first steps that you would take if you're trying to establish fundraising, or what you might even consider friend raising and developing relationships?
Sure. You know, one of the things about all of this, it's really not rocket science, but it definitely is something that a lot of folks routinely kind of, I don't know, miss points on, and just kind of, everybody wants to run to ask people for money and to start doing that. And, you know, Bobby, as you talked about, this really is, to me, it's about making friends. It's about building relationships. And the asking for money part is just kind of a one single part of what is a much, much larger sphere of this. And, you know, I think one of the other things that lies as a critical part of that is how we actually communicate and demonstrate the impact that we're making in our community. You know, as I noted, philanthropy is for animals is 1% of all the philanthropy in this country. So people have a lot of philanthropic priorities that sit way above animals for a whole lot of people. And one of the things that's interesting in relation to the, you know, the Haas work that's going on is a little bit of a shift in messaging. And it's something that in our fundraising group, we've talked about some of the challenges that might have with some of our donors who give it to us because they love animals. I would imagine if any of you are fundraisers in the animal welfare space, you've likely heard people say something like, I give to you because I like animals and not people. And so now if we start telling them, hey, you know, we actually don't hate the people, we're going to do something to help them, some of those folks can maybe move a little bit farther away, but that's okay. I mean, I think we have ample opportunity to include all of these people in our specter of friends. So one of the things that we spend a lot of time at with San Diego Humane Society is creating what we call a culture of philanthropy. And when I talk about a culture of philanthropy, that's just ensuring that everybody at the entire organization understands that their job is to be a part of that. And it's so much so that we have it written into everyone's job description. I usually, and let's be clear, we no longer have a new hire orientation. We used to pre-COVID, but now that's been shot. But let's sort of pretend for some of this that we're actually operating in a normal world. And in that normal world, every employee, when they start on their first day, number one, they have a component in their job description that talks about philanthropy and them being a part of the culture of philanthropy. Then they come in and we talk to them about what that really means. What does that look like? So that they're creating exceptional customer service, that we are doing all of the little things right around the shelter, because every single person that visits our shelter, that visits our website, that has any interaction with us is judging us. And to me, they're judging us to say, do I want to adopt from this organization? Do I want to volunteer with this organization? And would I potentially, for the folks that are philanthropic, would I consider being philanthropically involved with them? And it's super easy to find something wrong with a lot of things and say, I don't want to do any of these. So we have to really make sure that everybody understands that raising money is not just on the fundraising team, but it's really a part of what everyone does. And you know, one of the things also about this is making friends. How many of you hang out with people that you don't trust? Anybody? Anybody? I don't see anybody like jumping up and down. Like I like to bring my friends over and then see what they steal from my house. We don't hang out with people that we don't trust. People don't give to organizations that they don't trust. And it's kind of shocking to me in operating in the animal welfare space. And it's one of the things that I really like about what's going on with a lot of this HOS work is really trying to get people onto the same page. So we're not divisive and attacking each other about, hey, you really suck at doing this portion of animal welfare and you stink at this part, and undermining the public confidence. Because a lot of what we need to do is build trust with the people that give us money. And whether that's if they give us $10 or they give us $100, we need to steward those gifts. We need to thank them. We need to have the processes in place. So when I think about starting, you know, where this all starts, for many of you, it may start with the fact that, right, you need to start your own sort of foundation to be able to raise the money. For others of you, you may have that and you're looking at ways to expand that. I think I can stop talking for now and just see if, number one, if that made sense, or if Sarah wants to sort of echo or add on to that.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. And actually, I do want to kind of get to the journey of how Sarah got that big smile about being able to bless the shelter with the work that they do with their Friends Of. So Sarah, I know that you are a staff member of a Friends Of, which is like everybody's dream to be able to have paid staff running their partner organization. But can you tell us a little bit about how, you know, Friends of PAC even got off the ground and how it got to where it is today? And then after that, I'd love to open this up to questions to the rest of the group. So if you have things in mind, please keep them at the top of your head.
Sure. Okay. So it started with the county thinking that they needed fundraising to happen, right? So they actually hired someone as a county employee to do development work for them. And so that person came in. Her name's Karen Hollish. Many of you may know her, maybe have even seen her speak. She's been to several conferences, Best Friends, things like that. And I'm happy to connect anyone to her if anyone wants to talk more to her about starting the Friends group. But she really set the foundation as a county employee. And then they got to the point where it realized, okay, this is like much bigger and we're not necessarily comfortable with, or maybe even legally allowed to be soliciting donations in the way or at the level, right, that we're doing as a government organization. So at that point, Karen started creating a board of directors. So brought in, you know, volunteers, local folks in the community, to again kind of set the groundwork for Friends as a nonprofit, got us registered, and then thanks to Karen's work with existing major donors, actually got donors to, I think like 2 individual donors to fund 2 staff positions, which is like crazy good, like unheard of. And so that was the executive director position. And then my position, which is development and marketing specialist. So I live at the crossroads between marketing and development. Anyway, then eventually the county dissolved their own position and we became their official partners. And the way that we do that is we actually, pre-COVID anyway, had office space on site at the shelter. So we were there Monday through Friday with everybody, which is really great to get stories and overhear what they need and build those relationships with county and staff. And then, yeah, I mean, we also have a memorandum of understanding that kind of outlines the partnership and we review it, I think every year now. But like, you know, what is expected from each side? You know, like how does PAC support us and how do we support PAC? Yeah, and we don't run any programs either. I want to make that clear. We exist solely to fundraise, to bring in money and to hand it over and make it happen. So yeah.
I see some municipalities drooling over here just listening to the words that you're saying. So, hey, I want to
Yeah.
open it up to the group. Does anybody have questions for our speakers today?
Bobby, or Sarah, I guess I'm curious about how the actual positions are funded. We have the same scenario here in Rochester, and our friends group just hired an ED in May of this year, but so it's been operating with volunteers for 15 years.
Awesome.
But I'm curious about how the position is that those city positions or county positions are actually funded. Is it like a dollar amount that's gifted to the county, or right, and their
Yeah.
county employees?
That's a really, really good question. So we actually have kind of a mix. So we're a small nonprofit, 3 FTEs at this point, and we contract with a third-party HR group here in town who manages our HR. And so there are employees at PAC. There are some vet techs. There's the play group specialist that runs all the dog play groups. We have a community outreach specialist who's going out with doing a lot of the house work, actually, you know, handing out dog food and cat food. And so for those folks, they are actually on Friends of PAC payroll. So they are, and none of them are full-time, but they are, we send them their paycheck, right? Like our HR company sends them their paycheck. Now, there is a position at PAC that we call the fourth vet. And so that's like for a full-time veterinary position, and for a, our new one is an urgent dog coordinator. So she's dealing with the usually larger dogs that have some behavioral issues and need extra support there. And that is also donor funded. And both of those positions, so the vet and the big dog person, are actually county employees, and the county invoices us for their payroll. I hope that answers your question.
So some of the positions are your employees that are paid through this third-party employer. That's how our ED and volunteer coordinator are paid for our
Right.
friends group. So it's a co-employment situation, but there's some positions you're saying that are county positions that are funded by your friends group.
Yes.
They invoice, the county invoices the friends group.
Yeah, that's correct.
To
And I just
cover
remembered we have
salary
another,
and benefits, or just salary?
I believe it's salary and benefits. Yeah. And we also, thanks to a Haas grant, have another full-time intake to placement person. But she is on, and I'm not sure how these decisions get made, honestly, but she is on our focus, on our HR group also at full-time with benefits and everything, so.
You guys raise like an extraordinary amount of money. Could you tell us, like over the last year, like how much you guys bring in or per year, and like what are your main ways of raising money? Like what are the things that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we've actually had a pretty unique situation the last 9 months. We did not have a director, anyone at that director level. It was just myself and my coworker, who is title is executive administrator. And really my focus is online fundraising. So through email campaigns, social media, that sort of thing. And so mostly it's been through that, honestly, even before COVID this year. But really that can only go so far, right? And you really risk donor fatigue and kind of asking the same people over and over again if you're not able to really build those channels. So we give PAC close to $1 million every year. And a lot of that comes from, primarily from individual donors. Thankfully, we have a new director now, by the way, and he's fabulous. And so what we really need to focus on is those individual gifts, building those relationships like Brian talked about. It is all about those relationships, because those are the people you're gonna be able to rely on more than like a grant, right? Or like that has a specific direction, requirements, and may not even be available the next year, right? But I don't know, it's just more reliable to cultivate those individual donors.
Great. So a question Brian actually prompted me to ask that I totally forgot about which is a great question to know. How many of you are actively fundraising for your organization? I'd love for you to put this in the chat. You can say yes or no. And then also, can you let us know if you're with a government shelter or with a nonprofit organization? We can just flood that chat for a second. And one of the things, Brian, I think going from what Sarah was just talking about is really the relationship development. And I think, you touched on this in our fundraising working group, really about, oftentimes we start raising some money and then we go look for that next pot somewhere else. We keep focusing our energy on finding more people to give us a little bit of money.
Yep.
Whereas at San Diego, you really focus on relationship development and scaling your donors. Can you talk a little bit about the strategy and even the data behind that?
Yeah. So, I think there are a couple things, and building on Sarah's point, routinely there are a couple of things that happen. And if you are in the fundraising game for a day or for 20 years, you hear many of the same things of, well, if Bill Gates would just give us, $1 trillion, we'd be fine. Or if everyone in our town would all just give us $1 or $10, we'd be fine. And neither of those things are going to happen. And we know that. So when we work with, so Sarah's taking and saying, and I think, coming back to the question for a lot of people that don't have a lot of resources, at this point in time, one of the easiest, most cost-effective ways that you can do this is to get involved in online fundraising. And right, you can have great results, but you're going to cap out. That you need a diversified fundraising program. And, online mechanisms are a part of that. It's really then, do you have the bandwidth and how do you work to actually build a relationship? So when you go online, if somebody makes an online gift to your organization or any gift for $500, and you could pick the level because it might be that you have very few donors of $250. It might be 500, it might be 1,000. What I can say is any donor to San Diego Humane Society who gives us $500 gets a personal call to thank them for their gift and to talk to them about what prompted them to make that gift, to actually build a relationship, to ask them specific questions about what was it. And so this may be the first time they've ever given 500 because most donors don't come in at that $500 level. They start below that and move up to it, but some do start at that $500 level. But either way, once they get to that point for us, it basically triggers, a protocol for us that we will have someone on our team that calls them. And in non-COVID times, what we're really looking to do is we invite them to our shelter for a tour because that's really our magic bullet. That to me is the thing that animal welfare groups have over so many other organizations, that when we can bring people in and show them our product. And I realize, I have to be aware that, San Diego Humane Society operates in a different way than say a lot of municipal shelters. We have a really sophisticated veterinary operation. We have a wildlife center. We have a lot of things that we can show people. And when we do, really what I'm trying to get them to understand, and this gets to Bobby's question about if they gave us $10, they gave us $10 based on the information that they had at that time. And that information was likely incomplete in terms of what they know about us as an organization. So what we've basically distilled our team's work down into is that we educate, we inspire, and we engage. And that's what we spend our time doing. And what we have, so let's just take that $10 donor. They made that gift and they based it on the information that they had. If through compelling communications, fantastic Instagram stories, the direct mail appeals that we have, what we have on our website, our e-newsletters, any host of other things, we can demonstrate to them, here's what we did with that $10 gift. We want to be able to show over and over and over again why they want to invest more in us, because they're all making their sort of mark on the what they can do with their philanthropic dollar. And philanthropy is one of, very few businesses that if you say, we raised $1 and it cost us 50 cents. Any other organization in the world that could pull off that profit margin would be lauded. They would be absolutely like, oh my God, that organization's efficiency is unbelievable. They make 50% profit. Fundraising is not that way. We're supposed to do it on 10%. And one of the things that I think is important well, hold on, I'm going to hold on that, Bobby, because I'm moving away from scaling and I'm getting into a different topic. So let me pull myself back and come back on this. We have, and everybody does, I mean, it's super easy. You'll have ask strings that you'll put in. So a donor gave you $10, you know, when you go back, you ask them for $20. What's important to understand is donors basically move up incrementally for the most part. And there's a ton of data that backs all of this up. So taking a $100 donor, it's very difficult to get them to give anything more than $500. They're just not there. They're not there with that relationship with you. A $500 donor, it's very difficult to get them to move up to $2,500. You might be able to move them to $1,000. So kind of we approach this in understanding where people are. And for us, like I said, we've basically set for a very individualized conversation, anybody at $500 or more. And then we have a host of other mechanisms that we're looking to upgrade donors. And essentially you can expect to upgrade about 1/3 of your donors every year. That's what the data would tell you at most shelters. Somewhere around 33 to 38% of donors will make an upgraded gift in a subsequent year. And really the most critical thing that you can think about when scaling donors is getting people to make a gift 2 years in a row. When somebody makes a first-time gift to any organization, you pick it. First-time retention rate of that donor that they come back and they give to you again in a subsequent year is going to be about, it could be in the low teens, but in an ideal world, you're going to be sort of in the low 20th percent. If they give to you for 2 or more consecutive years, that number skyrockets and you can retain them at above a 60% rate. So it's super important when somebody makes a first-time gift to you that you actually recognize it, that you are stewarding those donors well. So much of us being able to get upgrades is about what we do once we get a first gift. Or if somebody moves and they gave you, $100 one year and they gave you $250 next year, and nobody bothered to say to them, we noticed that, thank you, because they did, they knew it. They knew that they were giving you more money. And so when we talk about building a relationship, this is really what this is like, that we recognize the times where there are shifts in people's behavior. And certainly one of those is when people make a first-time gift to you, first time they've ever given to your organization. Being able to say, thanks for being a part of this. Thank you for joining our family of supporters, because they give to other organizations. And what we want to demonstrate to them is that they feel differently. They know that we recognize them for what they do. And so when we talk about how we upgrade donors, again, most of the time in fundraising, people want to talk about what are the channels, how do we ask for money? I spend an awful lot of time talking about how do we thank the people that we have? How do we work with them? Because they are our biggest pot and they are the people that have already demonstrated they have a commitment to us. So not forgetting that channel and making sure that that's there. And then truly putting some strategy and some effort into that of who are the people that are going to be reached out to individually? How are you going to build those relationships? We have a whole program that we go through of taking a look at our higher level donors, of which of those donors do we believe we have a relationship to ask them for what level of gift in that year. But that's based on us also getting information from them. What do they like about our shelter? Which of our programs do they really care about? We have a program called our Pause program, which was basically our social safety net services. So finding out if that's the reason that a donor gave is exceptionally important. We have people that love our kitten nursery. What are the things that drive their passion, and our ability to connect them with that is really what allows us to move those relationships forward. There's so much to this that it's hard. It would be so difficult to talk about this in 1 hour and get to it. But those are some of kind of the nutshell versions that we do. And understanding that basically the program that we have at Standing Humane Society is likely different than most of the folks that are on this call in terms of the number of people that we have, but it is scalable. And you do have to start with this concept of, thanking the donors that you have and working with them and working to truly build a relationship. It's not just asking them for money in a transactional approach, but how do you make your annual giving machine into something that is really building a relationship? That's what we're after at Standing Humane Society, and there are a multitude of ways to do that. Sarah, I don't know what you would add on or complement to that. I'm sure I left out, many, many things.
No, I mean, I think that's great. I'm right along with you. This was all stuff I was going to say, so it's great.
So
I was just going to say, the 3 things for stewardship I would say is that timely thank you, like you're saying, Brian. and then being sure to, as soon as you're able to, communicate the impact or the outcome of their gift. And then personalized cultivation, like find a way to, like, you know, when you make that phone call to them, you can look at notes in your database and say, oh, how's Bobo doing? You know, because maybe you made a note last time, right, that their dog had to have an FHO surgery or whatever. But it's little things like that that can help you build that relationship and keep it going.
And Sarah, I noted, I mean, you put in the comments talking about the database. I mean, this is another thing. These are the things that really, I think a lot of folks, when they think about fundraising, they think this is not necessarily the glamorous, sexy work. But without an accurate database, you've got nothing. And it's also where, you know, when you start calling people and asking them how their cat's doing, and they're like, I've never had a cat. I don't have a cat. We want them to know that we actually do know them. And so keeping good data is essential. And it's another thing that you have to actually invest money in it. You have to invest money in the systems, and you have to invest money in the people to do it. And,
absolutely,
you know, one of the things that I think for many, you know, sort of municipal shelters that are looking to get into this, to me, there are a couple of things that people need to understand at the outset. That this investment in fundraising at the outset is not going to be one where all of a sudden it's like, you know, rainbows and unicorns and just cash falling from the sky. This isn't about what happens this year. It's about what happens in 5 years. It's about what happens in 10 years. And making an initial investment that makes sense to start to build that program and having an incremental sense of how you want to be able to build that moving forward. But fundraising, and particularly annual giving fundraising, is an expensive proposition in a cost per dollar raised scenario. So many groups that are starting out can get frustrated because, you know, you're stuck looking at things like some of the Charity Navigator and the GuideStar ratings that, you know, are assessing you on how thrifty you've been in your efforts to raise money. But I think people cannot be discouraged by that and have to say, we understand at the start of this, if you spend $1 to raise $1, to me, that's okay. Because you're building a program that once you start this, and you can start upgrading donors, you do have people that are going to start giving you significant gifts. That's really where that ratio is going to come down. But I think it's important that people know at the outset that this is going to be a reasonably expensive proposition to get into any real fundraising program. And $1 million gifts don't just fall from the sky. If they are falling from the sky with regularity at your organization, then I say hats off to you. Whatever it is you're doing there, don't change that. But normally it takes a long, long time to build the relationships that are going to lead those types of gifts. And all of us are set for estate gifts, so I'm just going to park that and put that in a different place. But those are just a couple of other points that I think are important to recognize in basically the structural foundation and the building blocks that are essential in building a real fundraising program.
Chris, did you want to ask your question?
So I was just wondering how the, you know, the tours may have changed and, you know, sort of the message changed in this HAAS era that we're in. So we're planning some tentative tours at our facility, but realizing that it's, you know, it's not all about the facility, and I don't necessarily want to perpetuate the, you know, the model that we've been living with for 150 years. So, you know, is it used as like, you know, this is kind of a piece of it, or this is how the shelter is serving now, and kind of prompting or segue into the discussion about what's happening outside the walls?
Yeah, I can say for us, one of the things with COVID, we're not doing tours. So we've had to put up a hard stop on doing tours. And I talk about this pretty regularly. I don't see the fact that we're going to be bringing donors into our shelter for months. I mean, we may end up having an entire year gap. But let's fast forward a little bit and say when we come back to this, one of the things that we always talked about on our tour was basically stopping in at our Paws program and talking about the work that they did that was out in the community. And what we will be doing now, we'll be talking more about these things. So when you come to the shelter, you see the physical elements of it. You know, I can take you through our kitten nursery. I can take you through the behavior center. You can see that. But we will incorporate much more of the things that they can't see, right? And talk to them about the change and the evolution of sheltering, which I think is to me an absolutely critical element in getting donors to upgrade and to want to be a part of investing more in what we're doing, is these aha moments that donors have when they think, wait a minute, this organization is doing more than what I thought. So that's a really, really great point about what you see here is only a microcosm of the work that we're doing. And these investments that we're able to make in most cases are not going to be made possible because of our municipal contracts. And to me, when we talk about, you know, how we sort of move donors, I'm also regularly talking to them about basically what municipal contracts are. And municipal contracts, getting into the history of that they were not set up to be for the benefit of animals. I mean, these are public safety. These are things that are designed to control rabies. We have a whole host of things about why, you know, municipal shelters came into being and what, by and large, they're funding. So the private funding is what allows us to do this extra work, to provide the extraordinary services that we are. So getting them to understand the things that they don't see is positively critical to the tours that we've been having, and we will continue to evolve it. We're just not living in a world where we're giving donor tours.
I do have a question. I'm in a municipal shelter in Ontario, Canada. And historically, like, we do have a donation fund that's actually called the Hope Fund, which stands for Helping Orphaned Pets in Emergencies. So it's always been marketed that way. It's always been targeted for unowned pets. So in this new era of trying to fundraise and help keep families together, do you have any tips for rebranding that? Because we've always marketed as for orphaned animals, right? So how do we transition while respecting all of the donations that already exist, which were donated in good faith for that purpose?
I can take a stab at that. To me, so much of what's going on in animal welfare is an evolution. And when I think about how programs evolve, for me, generally, I think, are we having kind of an evolutionary change, or are we having a revolutionary change? And I think a lot of this Haas model kind of falls somewhere in the middle of that. For some, it's actually truly a revolutionary process of just even starting a fundraising program. So you all already have one. It was designed for, right, these orphaned pets. I think I would just change the name of the program and let, you know, to me, this isn't disrespectful to the donors that you've had. It's just recognizing that the needs of the shelter and of the community have changed. And your organization is there to meet those needs. And so the new fund or funds that you get set up have a broader scope than what that was. And I think it would be, I mean, I don't want to discount it, because some of those things that seem so easy can be so hard, and particularly how they're received in our community. But I would just talk about, you know, COVID has given us all an opportunity on these resets to be able to talk about coming out of this. What did that Hope Fund do? And it was amazing at that time. And it was really important and impactful in these ways. But right now, the focus of our shelter, it's not that we are abandoning that. We still have that, but we have these other needs that we're incorporating. And now we have the, you know, the Ontario Animal Fund, or whatever it is, however that branding gets done, it's a broader fund. And to me, I would, you know, we have a lot of restricted gift opportunities at Sandy Humane Society. So you can give to our unrestricted fund. There's, I mean, it's just annual giving. There's not even a name for it. And you can restrict your gift to, you know, basically we've changed that pause fund to Human Animal Support Services. So we have a Haas fund that's set up that essentially splits between our community veterinary services and our community outreach programs. You could restrict a gift to any number of things, but we have one umbrella fund. And I think it's a lot easier to have a larger scope with restricted gifts than to just have one restricted fund that's about kind of like orphaned pets. But I think you can do it in that way. And I think we have a great opportunity to do it right now.
Thank you.
So is there anything that has happened for you guys lately that's been kind of a game changer? I know with some groups, it's like when they get CFC status, then, you know, when somebody gives a big donation or something, but what have you guys done that's been like a huge help? Like,
I'll let Sarah take that one first. I feel like I've been doing a lot of talking. I'll let Sarah jump in on that, and I certainly have an answer to it, but why don't we start with Sarah?
So Kelly, are you talking about like major gifts we've had recently, or can you restate your question? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I guess it wasn't really that clear. Something that you've done that has changed the game for you, for your organization. Just something that just made a really big change and helped you a lot.
I actually think one thing, and we're still kind of working on it, is managing those, like setting up the right restricted funds, right? Like the right buckets, and making sure there isn't redundancies and that it's actually effective, and that we're actually spending the money in those funds on that, that focus that the donors gave those dollars for. So we've been kind of like reevaluating that a little bit. Because I mean, unrestricted funding is the best, right? But based on research, donors like to give to buckets, right? They like to give to that one thing, that one dog, that one cat. And so we're trying to be creative, consolidating some funds. For example, we had our Pup and Boots project, which started with a volunteer who wanted to collect dog booties, because we're here in Tucson, it gets over triple digits all the time, like still is right now. And our folks who are facing homelessness, who have pets with them, are walking around, and the cement is very hot. It can cause serious burns to paws. But we want those pets to stay with those people, right? So that started out as just getting booties to give them, right? And then it was partnering with local groups, working with that population to get, pet food, collapsible water bowls, more and more things like that. And so it's just expanded. While at the same time, we had our pet support network, or our Keeping Families Together fund, where we were helping people with, vet bills of owned pets, even like deposits on pet-friendly rentals, things like that. And so we've recently been realized that, and especially with Haas, right, we're combining those. We're going to put them all under the one umbrella, Keeping Families Together, because that's what it is. It makes more sense than just Pup and Boots. And so I think that's going to really help us just like streamline things and be able to engage people more, because it's like kind of with Stephanie's question, just make it bigger, like you are doing more, right? And there's more to be done. And I think that's something to celebrate, and that most donors will actually resonate with.
And I just want to hop in here. Sarah is incredibly humble. I want to say that this program is huge in Tucson. I mean, to the point where no matter where you are in Tucson, which is a giant county, like 2,000 square mile county, you will see someone with a backpack they have from PAC. The backpack had food bowls in it, these booties, collapsible water bowls, and you'll see people all over the city with these backpacks and their dogs with their little tennis shoes on, and their clip-on water bowl. And being able to just see that wherever you are in your community too, because it is so specific, has grown this program just enormously. And it like, seriously, every time that I see this, I almost start crying, because it's so wonderful to see that people have access to keeping their pets like paws safe. That's huge. And that could turn into an infection that turns into a reason that someone has to be disconnected from their pet. So it's pretty awesome. And I know Sarah's very humble, but this program has been huge.
Thanks, Rory.
I'm just glad I live in San Diego, where it's a little cooler.
Fair.
Of course, if you go inland, it does get hot there. So I think in answering that question, there were a lot of things that came to mind, but I think one of the things for us that we've been pushing, and is certainly changing our program, is our monthly sustaining donor program, which is another thing that I think for anybody starting out, this is a really great tool to talk about, building loyal donors, building retention, and creating something that can have pretty immediate impacts. And over the past couple of years, we've been able to build, we call it our Constant Companion program. If anybody wants to go online, you can check it out. We have our own branded stewardship for it and a whole bunch of other stuff. But we've built this to basically be at this point about $1 million a year program for us. So every month, the flip of a switch, we basically get, you know, I don't know, 85 grand or so right now that just keeps coming in from monthly sustaining donors who give to us every month on their credit card. And that's a program that we're investing heavily in building. COVID has put a hold on that because we were actually using canvassers, which we were, I think, possibly the first regional shelter to employ canvassers as a way to go out and build our sustaining program. It was working really well for us until it came to a screeching halt. And we'll get back to doing that. But I think that how we look at building sustaining programs for everyone is a really important thing. And then again, it gets into databases, tracking, and the ability to keep that pipeline moving. But that's certainly one thing for us that's been really big. One of the other things that we've done that really does come back to that cultural philanthropy component that I talked about at the start is we created, for lack of a better word, it's our campus fundraising initiative. So we have really 3 of our campuses are places where you would adopt an animal from us. And with every adoption now, there is actually a solicitation that comes with that. So we ask them to make a gift above and beyond. And we have a whole program around this. We've created awards. We train our adoption counselors so that what they're doing is not just creating an interaction that's about finding a good home for an animal, but they're using their time with potential adopters to educate them about what we do. And then when we go through the adoption process, they are very well positioned to talk to them about what their gift beyond their adoption fee that they're paying that day can do to help support the work that we do at Sandy Humane Society. And that program at this point makes about $200,000 a year for us. And, you know, so obviously we adopt out a good number of animals, but it was $200,000 that years ago was zero. And then those donors become consistent donors to us, and we work to build on that. So I think that's another place that for people just starting out, how you can build that program and training your adoption counselors to make asks at the time of an adoption is an important way to start to build a donor file as well.
I have a question. I have a question for Sarah. I'm sorry, I've been like hopping in and out because I had to go like open another room, and I've just been like all over the internet today. But Sarah, I don't know if you mentioned this at all, but Friends of PAC was actually just voted voted by the people of Arizona, the Reader's Choice winner of Best Nonprofit, which in Tucson, which, you know, normally that is reserved for an organization that is really sort of like well known or well established like within the community. And I've never heard of a Friends of Animal Care getting an award like this, but that's all to say, like, y'all have such a huge presence in Tucson and people really know who you are. Can you speak a little bit about how you've established your presence in Tucson?
Sure. And just like development, that does not happen overnight, especially if you have a smaller budget or simply don't want to spend the money on that, right? Because you have lots of pets to take care of. So that has definitely taken time. I've been in this role 2.5 years now. And winning that award recently was a really nice confirmation that people like know we exist, which has been great. Some of the challenge has been that people don't know the difference between us or PAC. So that's a conversation we're always having with people. But yeah, I mean, one thing we do is, honestly, the most critical thing to it is to every press release. So the shelter has their own PIO or public information officer who's awesome. And she works specifically for the shelter. And, you know, we team up with her so that the shelter's always talking about us in their social media. And in every press release she writes, we're in there, right? And like in every instance, we're talking about each other. And I think that that's huge because they have a much greater reach than we do naturally because people know of them, right, as the municipal shelter. So I think that's been critical. building our social media presence has been important. And that's through, you know, consistent quality content that people want to engage with. And we've done some print advertising, but not too much. One thing that's been really successful for us, and I don't know if that's available in other towns or in the same way, but our bus system here in Tucson has bus shelters with these big posters on them, and then bus benches that they can switch out the advertising on. And so, like, I think it was probably 2 years ago, we paid a pretty hefty sum as part of this giant $5 million campaign we were doing. I think it was about $10,000. We paid to have these ads put all over town, and like Rory said, Tucson's huge. And the cool thing about these people is once you purchase an ad with them as a nonprofit, well, they give you a discount, of course, always ask for discounts. They continue, if they don't have other paid advertising to put in there, they continue to rotate your ads. So I, like, right down the street from my house right now is that ad that I gave them 2 years ago. Thank God it's still relevant, but they have been sharing that over and over again. And you know, it's just getting that kind of top of mind. And we're lucky enough to have that in an affordable way. So, yeah.
Sharon, that's a really good point about the billboards as well. In Sacramento, so in the city of Sacramento actually owns their own digital billboards as well. So we talked to our city PIO, and we were able to get space, especially during, I know, pre-COVID, a lot of our major fundraisers that were going on. Another question that I had, Sarah, as far as online fundraising, are all of the donations that are solicited online through a website, are they all through the Friends of PAC website, or do you actually have a donation link on the county website as well?
So everything that I promote asking for donations definitely goes to our website and our, you know, our form. The county website has both, so people can still give directly to the county. One thing the county relies on is folks rounding up on their dog license every year. So there's a thing on their form, and that's one of the things Karen Hollish, the original development person at PAC, established. So people round up on their license, you know, and that really adds up, and that helps fund the spay and neuter actually at the shelter. So we don't touch that. But on the shelter's donation site, we're listed first. So there are definitely options. You can donate directly to the shelter, but we're first on there. And anytime that, you know, say that PAC sends out a press release about something, they'll say to help with these, like say we have a hoarding case, you know, to help these 40 terriers, make a gift to our official nonprofit partner, Friends of PAC at friendsofpac.org, you know. So they're always pushing people back to us. And the cool thing is we have the capacity to then do that personalized stewardship and gratitude, right, that Brian's been talking about, which the shelter just doesn't have the staff or time to do that.
Another thing that's like been awesome about that is that, you know, sometimes when you post on a shelter website, you know, we need to raise money for this dog that such and such and such, or it's gonna die, right? Or whatever the messaging is. And then people just start attacking the veterinarians in your shelter, attacking your staff. For whatever reason, when this is coming from a third party, you don't get that same kind of like hate coming at your organization, which has been fascinating. But you can literally message the same thing, but your vets aren't going to get beaten up for needing money to do a surgery. It's wild. But if you, check out the Facebook page, because that's something that I just find like interesting about this whole thing. It's like you can ask for things that if the shelter asks for it, they're going to get destroyed. But if your friends ask for it, you're going to get the money. So I don't know. It's really interesting.
And I feel like, the messaging is important too. Like saying this, like we care about this animal and want to save it. Can also, and I feel like with a third party, you're often being fairly sensitive to like how you are wording it. I don't know. What are some of the issues that you guys are having with fundraising? Is it a lot harder out there right now? This is what I'm hearing.
I can speak for San Diego Humane Society. So far, we are having great success raising money. We've not seen a reduction in support. Our direct mail is doing really, really well. I know that the direct mail vendor that we work with, we've spoken to them to see if we were an outlier to what's going on. And they said we are not, that the other animal welfare clients that they have are all doing very, very well in their direct mail programs. I think what has separated us from a lot of different groups at this point in time has been the fact that we've been open and a lot of the support service work that we've done has been very, very visible. Our food pantry, we've given away, I can't even keep track at this point of how much pet food we've distributed. We basically had a big PR thing around our 1 millionth pet meal that we had donated out during COVID times. So we've been open the whole time, and I think people have been able to see that. So we've been kind of an essential service provider that has been able to stay at the forefront. What I am concerned about, what I have massive concerns about, is what's ahead. In terms of, we know about, economic uncertainty. We know that the unemployment rate is up. And at some point, I feel like those factors, with the uncertainty about the election that's coming up, I have great concern about what's going to happen with year-end philanthropy, which is really when, a lot of our bread is buttered with a nice vegan spread. And that I have concerns about. So right now we're doing well, but I'm not overly, I'm skeptical about how things are going to go coming up.
And are you guys are you taking any steps to like counteract that potential? I don't know. I would say
Communicating, talking, impact, just, and whatever channels we have. I mean, this is about, it's consistently demonstrating the need. And that's why, as Sarah was noting at the start about, if you just have online as that's the only channel, you can get fatigue and burnout on that. So we have, a number of ways that we look to communicate. We've done a lot. We've changed our communication structure during COVID to include new video messaging and things that come out from our president and CEO. At the start of it, we were doing them twice a month. Now everybody gets a 1 month sort of video message from Gary that goes on Instagram. It goes on Facebook. We send it out to email. We are just continuing to let people know that we're here. My hope is that we can be one of the organizations that can weather this storm better than many of the other nonprofits, because we can demonstrate that for both animals and for people, we are the organization in San Diego County that is doing the work, and being crystal clear about that. Of if there was ever a time to not reduce your giving, or if there was ever a time to think about giving, this is it. Because we are changing the way that animal welfare is done. And I think for all of us, being a part of kind of, the Haas movement gives a sense that this is actually bigger than just some individual shelter. There is a nationwide push on the evolution of animal welfare. We're a part of it, we're excited about it, but we need resources to be able to do it. And how clearly we can articulate that to our community, to our donors, to folks that haven't been donors, that's what we're focused on. And I don't, there's no panacea to that, but that's definitely what we're working on.
Brian and Sarah, we're so grateful that you were with us today. I know we're completely out of time. Kelly, did you have a quick update for next week, or do you want to just say goodbye to the squad?
get to it really quick. So next week, we're going to talk about field services and intake. We have Spencer Conover and Christina Snow coming to talk to us next week. And we have a couple other people we're probably going to ask too. So that one's going to be really exciting. Spencer already sent me his presentation and like a ton of resources to send you guys. So I'm really excited about it.
Awesome. Is the time changing next week, Kelly?
Oh, good question. Yes, it'll be on the 30th at 4. So that's Wednesday next week.
Thanks, everybody. And if anyone wants to reach out, I put my email in the chat. It's just sarah@friendsofpack.org. Or if you go through our website, it goes right to me too. So
thank you so much. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks everyone for being here.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. Take care.
Great to see everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.